Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zuri if you're new here. Today I have compiled a list of things that I have learned living abroad. I have taken a lot of time really thinking about this. Now, if you're new to my channel, I am an American living in Australia. I moved here in 2016. I am now a dual citizen. I have learned a lot of things, so I really was scraping my brain for information, and I have some things that I want to share with you. Maybe you're thinking of moving abroad, and I figure, you know what, it's the season to spend time with family, so what better time to talk about being away from family than now? So yeah, I am going to be getting my face ready. I'm actually just about to leave to head to a movie with some friends, so I will be getting ready while I talk about these things. So I really hope you enjoy and learn and get something out of this. Perfect time to film a video. On a time crunch, best time to do this. If you guys are new to my channel, I am an American living in Australia. I've lived here for a little over 7 years now. Things that I've learned from living abroad, and I don't mean just traveling, because I think for me there's a difference between traveling abroad and actually like settling down and making a new life in another country, which I have very much done. I'm married, building a house, I have animals, I have pets. I'm very much settled into Australia here, and I am a citizen, so I'm a dual citizen. Let's just start. Gonna put some sunscreen on. It is late in the day. It's 3:42. Dinner's at 5:30, but I have a bit of a drive, so I am gonna put some sunscreen on. This is not enough, by the way. Like, if I was going out in the middle of the day, I would use more. First thing I've learned about living in another country is your problems follow you. Obviously, there is like a novelty, and you know, everything's new and exciting. Even just visiting another country, moving there for the first time, and that definitely happened. Like, I actually suffered from regular panic attacks when I lived in the US. After I moved to Australia, those pretty much ceased completely until about 5 years into me living here. They started to come back. Granted, they were spurred on by a different reason, but they came back nonetheless, and now I'm actually like proactively getting mental health help for that, which has helped immensely. And that's kind of another thing I'll touch on, is access to health services. But if you are hoping to run away from your problems, then just know that, yeah, it might be exciting and it might work for a little bit, even a couple of years. They will always be there, and you will eventually have to face them. Maybe your problem is like tied to the place where you're living. And I will say that maybe it's easier to deal with them in another country because of, you know, better access to certain healthcare. So for instance, Australia has like a better set up Medicare system, and it is a lot easier and more affordable to access doctors and mental health professionals and stuff like that. So in that way, it's been better. Just the act of moving does not cure your illness, unless it's like maybe a physical ailment and can actually like physically get help, which kind of leads me to my next point. For me, definitely my access to healthcare just like in general increased, and I find that the kind of healthcare in Australia, even though, I mean, there's always going to be something to criticize, and I think that goes for any country that you live in. There's always going to be something that, you know, can be done better. No system is perfect, but there is definitely a more like preventative approach to health in Australia versus like in the US. Obviously, I can only compare to the US because that's the only other place I've lived, obviously. So for that reason, actually, maybe moving does solve problems, but for a different reason, I guess. It just depends on why you're moving and what you're hoping to get out of it. So the next thing that I learned, and maybe it's not less so learning, I mean, it kind of is. Over time, my charisma flourished. When I first moved here, I was actually streaming on Twitch, and that was my main source of income. So I really could have been anywhere in the world, really, and continued to stream. I didn't really go anywhere. Like, I wasn't leaving the house as often because I was working online, and that was kind of my whole life was dedicated to just being online. What I found was that I wasn't making friends. I wasn't meeting anyone new. I wasn't having as many like new experiences in this new country because I was spending most of my day isolated, essentially. So for the first like year and a half that I lived here, I didn't really make any friends. I didn't really meet a lot of new people, and it was very isolating. I felt very lonely, and I got more homesick, and I think this is part of the reason is because I felt like I was only missing my friends and my family, and there was nothing to really replace those connections in person, which I think is so important, to have connections and people that you can talk to in person. There's a place for like friends online, and I still talk to friends over the phone, but it can only go so far. I think it's really important to have friends that you can talk to physically in person. So after about a year and a half, I was legally allowed to enter the workforce in Australia. I was on a bridging visa for a while I waited for my main visa to be approved. And then when I can finally work, I went into the disability sector. Now, I come from a background of lived experience with disability, so this was something that I was very passionate about. And since then, I have worked exclusively in disability as my salaried income in Australia, and it's been very rewarding, very challenging, but very rewarding. And through that, I met a lot of amazing people. In fact, one of my very first clients that I worked with, I met someone who is still my friend to this day. And this was, 5 years ago or so now. I met someone, and she's still my friend today. Even though I don't currently work in the disability sector anymore, I am still friends with her. And what I found is that because I was doing something that I felt a personal connection to, I was actually making friends who had, similar passions, similar values, and it was a really great way to meet people. And listen, I'm not saying that you can't meet people unless you go and get an in-person job. That's not what I'm saying at all. But for me, I needed a reason. It sounds silly, but I needed a reason, and I needed a way to truly connect with people on a deeper level than just going to a cafe and then just saying hi to people and having very surface level conversation like, how's the weather? Oh, where are you from? Which I did get lots of that. When I moved to Australia, things are novelty, but you are also just as much of a novelty as an American. And I moved here in 2016. I moved right before the election, which was a very tumultuous time in US culture. And I got a lot of questions, and it kind of became annoying sometimes because that's all people would ask you. They would ask you about politics, they would ask you about the election and all that stuff. And it's like, I get it that they find that fascinating, but for me, it was like, we're not really going beyond that in conversation. They almost see you as like, you're a cartoon character from a cartoon country. That's kind of what I felt like as an American. Like, your whole country is a joke, and it's like, the kind of questions I got were just like, is America a real place? Because it doesn't even seem real, which, fair. So like I said, I'm not saying you can't build friendships in other ways, but for me, I needed that reason. Entering the workforce in another country also forced me to make those new connections. So I was completely starting from scratch. I didn't have any ties to any company or anything, so I was completely starting from zero. So because of that, I feel that my skills in communication and my charisma has really flourished since I moved. Ooh, I think this is pretty much gone. Oh, maybe not. How does this look? Does this look bad? Oh my god. I'm trying to get ready quickly. I know I have to leave soon. I need to leave in 30 minutes. Oh my god. Why would I pick now, of all times, to film? So the next lesson I've learned is that making a new home is not easy. This might seem obvious to some of you. I was not someone who, and I guess I'm still really not, who was needing to be around family all the time. And not that I don't have family that I love. I have, my very close family who I love, and, my mom and my brothers. I was like, oh, it'll be fine. I'm not a mama's girl or anything. I'm sure that I will be just fine with the move. And I found it more difficult than I was anticipating to actually feel like Australia was my home. I think for the good first 2 years that I lived here, I cried a few times and got homesick. I did go back to the US in end of 2018, I think it was. And unfortunately haven't been able to visit back since, just because now the cost to go anywhere is so fucking expensive. I think that helped a lot, was just being able to go back and visit at least one time. And sometimes it's not even just about people. I mean, it is that, but also it's everything around you has changed. So not just the people, but the culture has changed. You know, you don't have access maybe to certain things like you did before, like certain creature comforts that you didn't have, like maybe a certain drink or a certain snack or like a restaurant that you used to love, or I don't know, a place you used to go, like a park that you used to love, or this mountain you used to love to hike. You don't have, you know, everything is brand new. So anything that brought you comfort, you may not necessarily have that anymore. So you're creating all new connections. Your environment is completely different. Things that used to bring you comfort and joy, you have to kind of rediscover and recreate all of those things again. So I think that really didn't start to happen until the novelty of living in a new country kind of wore off, which I think I mentioned was like about a year and a half, maybe 2 years into living here. I don't know, I wasn't really creating solid routines. I guess that's another thing. I don't even have that on my list, but I think having a routine is so important to giving you a sense of regularity and reliability, because for some people it might be that the nature of everything being in question, like what am I going to do today, that is exciting for a while, but I think after a couple of years you start to go, okay, I need a good like routine, like having friends, having those local connections, maybe getting active in your community if that's really important to you. And that's luckily something that I was able to do working in disability. So I was building connections in my community, you know, stuff like that. That's when I really started to feel like this place was my home. All right, this next one is, I guess, more specific to the US. And a lot of you are not going to like me for saying this. American coffee sucks. I can already hear you typing in the comments like, how dare you come for me in my Starbucks or my Dutch Bros or what have you. I don't know what you drink. My Denny's, my drip coffee at Denny's. Okay, listen. I wasn't a massive like coffee aficionado or anything like that before I moved to Australia. Okay, so let me just start out by saying that. But there's definitely a higher standard for coffee in Australia than there is in the US. I think that is in large part due to migration that happened in early 1900s. A lot of Greeks and Italians kind of moved en masse to Australia and brought their really amazing coffee with them. That's just kind of become ingrained in Australia's culture. Australia is definitely a cafe culture, which is something that was also new to me. That's not really, I mean, I don't know about you guys that live in the US, but that is not really something that I had experienced before. I'm definitely not saying that all American coffee is bad, okay? That is not what I'm saying, because trust me, I'm the first person to defend American coffee, because I've had some really good coffee in the US that I feel like I would still love today if I were to go and visit and have, like, call me mainstream, but I love a good house roast from Starbucks, just black coffee. I love Starbucks coffee. Every single person that I've talked to here in Australia who's gone to the US to visit, I always hear the same thing. Yeah, your coffee sucks. And I'm not just talking about blended drinks that are very, like, unfamiliar to Australians, like the blended ones with lots of sugar and whipped cream and sauce and whatever on top. I'm talking like regular coffee, maybe like drip coffee or a latte or something like that. Something that would be more regular here in Australia. They all across the board say, nah, it ain't it, fam. Like, I really missed my Australian coffee. I don't know. Take that for what you will. Listen, I'm not saying one way or the other, but that is pretty much the consensus outside of the US. So I'm just saying, maybe there is something better out there for you. There is so much beyond just the US and Australia. And I guess on a similar note to that, I realize I haven't been saying anything of what I'm using. I'm really sorry. It's just, I can't talk about this stuff and tell you guys what I'm using and put my face on. It's too hard for me. I'm sorry. Oh, actually, I'm gonna put some lip plump on. I should have done that before. All right, I cannot find my sharpener, so yeah, I'm just gonna have to really work with this flat pencil. Don't worry, we're gonna blend this out. Anyways, as I was saying, oh God. Okay, we might end up with a smoky eye, guys. On a similar note, yeah, American chocolate tastes like vomit. I really didn't like chocolate before I moved here, okay? Not plain chocolate by itself. I used to love like a good Snickers or like I don't know, like a Kit Kat. And even then it wasn't really something that I would seek when I lived in the US. Like, I just didn't really care about chocolate. I much preferred like fruity candy. And I guess I still do. I love Sour Patch Kids and Warheads. I love sour candy. What I noticed after moving here is that I started to eat chocolate more. I just really was like, you know what? This is actually pretty good. I'm just gonna buy plain bar of chocolate. And I think that's more like normal here, is to buy like a big bar like this of chocolate and just eat it, you know? And I had never really done that before living in the US. But what I find is that now that I've moved here, I actually enjoy eating chocolate just by itself, and I never had before. I'm sorry, I'm not saying Australian chocolate is amazing, and the same thing as the coffee. I'm sure there is great chocolate in the US that doesn't taste like bomb. Whether or not it tastes like vomit, I actually now eat chocolate. I actually enjoy it now, whereas, you know, chocolate in the US, it wasn't for me. All right, I'm really trying to get this diffused wing to work with me. It's not working with me. It's working against me right now. I guess another thing I didn't have on my list, but just kind of came to me was, and this could just be because the standard of living is higher, but people are just more like happy. I mean, it was interesting. The first thing I noticed when I went back to visit the US in 2019 was how unhappy everyone is. I'm not saying everyone's angry, but just on average, people were just shorter, not as friendly. And listen, I don't even blame you, because you're struggling to live. Maybe you have medical debt, can't afford to go to the doctor. You have cavities that you can't afford to fill. You can't afford insurance. Your minimum wage is like fuck all. You can't even afford to live on minimum wage. Which, to be fair, not saying Australia is amazing, but it's kind of becoming America too, especially since I moved here. Also, it's like things are a bit slower, not as quick paced. People are more relaxed, and not everything is just so like rushed. I guess that's something else I've noticed. What else have I noticed? Maybe this is specific to Australia. It might be it might be with any, like if you're coming from, you know, an English speaking country. So for me, from the US to another one, so for me, Australia, you think like, oh, I'm moving to another country that speaks English. No worries. There are still, I swear to you, I've been here 7 years, and there are still, sometimes I'll hear a word and go, what the hell does that mean? Especially with Australians, because they love to just like make up their own words for things and like shorten everything unnecessarily. It's such a lazy version of English. And I think Australians would agree. You know, you've got like mosquito, muzzy, a tradesperson, tradie. But even then, I'll still hear stuff today and just be like, what the hell did you just say? And what does that mean? Like I feel like it still happens to me. I think it's just funny more than anything. But I love it's just another version of English that Australians speak. And I kind of like it. It's very endearing. It's fun. Okay, I am nearly done. I think there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Gonna pack on some blush. I think like I mentioned before about kind of like the attitudes toward healthcare here, while not perfect, you know, I'll say, it's more preventative in nature than somewhere like the US, which maybe isn't saying much because the US is definitely not known for preventative healthcare. Something that I thought was so interesting is that like everyone's got a physiotherapist, or, you know, for my freedom friends, we call them physical therapists, but here it's called physiotherapy. Well, I think everywhere else it's called physiotherapy, to be fair. Just everyone's got a physio. You've got an ache, you've got a pain, you do like needling or something. It's just like everyone's got a physio, and it's pretty normal to have a physio and see them regularly. And I think maybe a reason for that is the science of like human movement is very good here. Like a lot of people will come from other countries to come here specifically. I think like we've got a school in Queensland that's literally like one of the best in the world for human movement. It's pretty normal for everyone just to have a physio that they go to. So it could be for anything. It could be for, you know, massage. It could be for, you know, maybe Pilates. You see a physio for Pilates, for, you know, rehabilitation in general, like any injury you have. I don't know. I find I think it's really good though. I think it's good to have more regular preventative care, you know, reducing the need for extreme intervention like surgery and stuff like that. I mean, obviously there's times where you might need it. I don't know if I've mentioned, but I used to have I've had like a funny knee for a long time, since before I even moved here. You go to a physio. It's just what you do. You go to physio. You don't need like a crazy injury. You know, it could be just something really small. It's just what's normal here. And I think that's so good. I think it's so good to have that be normalized. Also, Project Pan update. My Guerlain bronzer, it's totally busted. Like, yeah, very sad. I mean, I will say that I have my fair share of criticisms of Australia. I mean, I think I've got plenty. I've lived here long enough to make a list. So I don't know. I can talk about that in a separate video if you guys are interested, because I think it's important to be real with people who are wanting to live abroad, especially to Australia. I mean, Australia has its problems, definitely. If that's something you guys are interested in, please let me know, because I can definitely do a video on things that I find odd and criticisms that I have as an American living here. I'm a citizen, so I can criticize all I want. I'm gonna pack on more highlighter. And because I am going to dinner, I'm not gonna put lip product on because I'm just gonna have to reapply it, and then we're seeing a movie. So it's like, who cares, you know? I'm not gonna try and put on lipstick and then try and fix it after dinner. All right, I have these lashes I wanna try. I love to buy my lashes from Amazon because I can get like a massive pack of them for like $10. So I recently just picked up these ones. They're like, I like to buy these half lashes or like 3/4 lashes because my eyes are small. I don't want to have to deal with like cutting up my lashes. I don't want to have to do that. I just want to pull them out and stick them on and be done. Let's get these fucking shits on it. I don't know if you guys are curious about kind of the process of moving and the visa and applying for the visa and everything, then definitely let me know. I mean, I'll just tell you that I applied on a family visa because my partner is Australian, so maybe not applicable for everyone. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something. If you're interested in more content relating to me living abroad, maybe you're interested about the process that I went through, yeah, let me know if you'd like more of these, because I'm more than happy. I'm an open book. I want to be completely and 100% honest about living in another country. I feel like a lot of times it's romanticized, maybe a lot more than it should be. It's definitely not easy, and I want to be as honest with you guys as I can about it and be real. Manage your expectations. Maybe. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.